Hi, I'm Sierra Lutz, and I will be talking to you today about my single case evaluation with an adolescent with anxiety. My evaluation took place at Centero. Centero is a mental health behavioral counseling center. They have 4 locations within Franklin and Delaware County. They serve mental health, counseling, supportive services, as well as substance abuse. Treatment services include individual, group, psychiatric, case management, and school prevention programming. So the client that I selected, I will refer to her as Jane. When I first started seeing her, was 15 years old. However, she had a birthday, so she is now 16. She's a biracial female, and she identifies as belonging to the LGBTQ community. She currently lives with both her biological parents and a younger brother. She has a history of having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. She reported that she had tried counseling in the past. However, she felt that it was not successful, and her mom also confirmed that she did not feel that it really did anything for Jane. Jane is seeking treatment for anxiety symptoms. Jane is really struggling at school, particularly. So I diagnosed Jane with generalized anxiety disorder as well as ADHD. Jane has been taking medication for ADHD for years and reports that she finally found something that helps her stay focused and is able to concentrate at school for the most part. However, this year seems to be really hard for Jane. Her academics are deteriorating. Jane used to be an all-A student. However, this year, which is her freshman year in high school, she reports that there's 3 classes that she is really, really struggling to even be able to pass. Um, Jane will spend most of her time when she's at home studying. She also has a tutor. She has had meetings with the school as well as with her parents being involved with that. And she just feels like no matter what she's doing, she's not able to be successful and to do the things that she would like to be doing. So my evaluation questions are going to be looking at whether there's a change in symptoms regarding Jane's anxiety. And if so, did the change occur over time? Was the change positive or negative? And were there any notable patterns in regards to the change? So Jane's intervention includes a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy, reality therapy, and mindfulness skills. So really, the cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'll get into here in a minute, was really one of the main uh, evidence-based practices that comes out of the research showing to utilize with adolescents with anxiety, as well as the mindfulness skills. And my supervisor really kind of wanted me to kind of use some reality therapy specifically with this client as well, because Jane has a perfectionism mentality, and she is unable to kind of see how the way that she's perceiving things isn't true. So, for example, my client felt that if she failed one class, she was never going to be able to get into a college. And so, one of the activities that I had to do with Jane included kind of walking her through like a college website and their admissions details and kind of what courses she needs to take and what the average GPA is and average score on an ACT is, and just kind of like more of a realistic showing for Jane to kind of help her kind of ease some of the stress that she was feeling. So this is my logic model, and I'm sorry that it's a little smushed, but I believe that you can still read it. So really, we're trying to, the problem is obviously the stressful life events. She's highly anxious at school with peer relationships, and that this worry is intruding in her life. It's impacting her academic abilities. So what we will be doing is research practice is based in stress management, CBT, mindfulness things, as well as that kind of realistic explanation that I just talked about. So we will have about 10 weeks worth of intervention, and then you can see kind of the short-term and long-term goals. Obviously, long-term, we really want her to be more relaxed at school and at home, to increase those academics, to be sleeping normally, and to kind of reduce or eliminate those negative thoughts. So that thoughts that she's never going to be able to be successful, she's not going to be able to meet her future goals, things like that. For the research in regards to the interventions, I was able to find 2 systematic reviews. So the first systematic review found that CBT worked with majority of adolescents, specifically reducing symptoms of anxiety post-treatment for minimum of 1 year. So once treatment was completed, adolescents were still having a reduction in anxiety symptoms for minimum up to 1 year. It also found that CBT is good to use when working with diverse populations and in different treatment settings, and for clinicians who have different backgrounds than clients. This was important as well because my client belongs to 2 different minority groups, and that my treatment setting is kind of an outpatient setting, even though majority of her symptoms seem to be occurring at school, as well as my background is different than my client's. So this was kind of hopeful to know that CBT should be still a good option to use with Jane. The second systematic review looked at mindfulness interventions in adolescents, and that review found positive outcomes in cognition and attention, as well as reducing symptoms of anxiety and stress. And there has been little research in regards to reality-based therapy. However, I was able to find one research article that found that it could be helpful to use in a school setting to help students come up with different solutions with situations in their lives. So the measurement tool that I used was the Beck Anxiety Inventory Scale. And the Beck helps to monitor clients' anxiety symptoms. This allows us to see whether there's a change in symptoms as well as frequency of symptoms. So when I'm using the tool over a period of time, I'm kind of able to see whether the symptoms are staying the same, or whether they're changing, and kind of the frequency of symptoms. Overall, I was looking at the final rating of anxiety based off of the Beck final score. The Beck has been recommended to use in clinical settings in order to obtain the highest accuracy of anxiety symptoms. So there's 21 symptoms listed on the Beck. This has been proven to be a reliable source for use with adults and with adolescents. Some kind of barriers though, it is a self-reporting scale, so individuals could under or over report symptoms, as well as kind of forget kind of symptoms that they've experienced. So for Jane, what we would do is she would fill out the Beck for me each week, and the symptoms would be for the previous 7 days, because I would typically see her the same day of the week each week. And so she very well could have kind of forgotten kind of different experiences that happened within the past week, so that could be a barrier. The Beck, though, is very easy to understand. The questions are a rating scale, and the rating scale is easy to understand. It's just a 0 to a 3. It is brief, and it takes little time out of the session, so it wouldn't even take Jane 5 minutes to complete her scale for me at the beginning of the session. And one issue that did arise was kind of a lack of data collected. And I'm sure, as most of you know, if you are here in Ohio, our winter was not the greatest. And unfortunately, Jane had a few cancellations due to weather conditions, so I wasn't able to get as many outcome measurements as I would have liked to. So my evaluation design, I was unable to use an AB format due to not having baseline data, so I did a B-only design. And in the clinical setting, I was unable to have measurements without an intervention due to ethics and billing for services. So in order to bill a medical insurance for treatment, you have to be utilizing evidence-based interventions. Therefore, I could not continue to have my client come in here for sessions and not do any evidence-based interventions. All measures collected were after my interventions were implemented. So as soon as I completed my assessment and we completed our treatment plan with Jane, we started doing the interventions immediately. So that's why I have a B-only design. I also couldn't, in the middle of treatment, decide to not do interventions with Jane. So I was not able to have an A data in the middle of treatment due to the same things for ethical reasons and being in the clinical setting. The threats to internal validity include history, so that refers to any unplanned event or external factor that impact the intervention or the outcomes. So my client's symptoms are worse at school, and as I'm sure you are aware, the media has been full of information regarding school violence, and my client reported she felt symptoms getting worse, kind of being exposed to those new stories, as well as kind of the talk within her school. And that was a trigger that was brought up during her original assessment with mom. Mom would report that any time that my client was exposed to any type of world violence, whether it be news or from a conversation she had, that my client would end up sleeping on her parents' bedroom floor, because like that just really spiked her anxiety symptoms. So the other threat to internal validity includes statistical regression. So clients tend to come see us when they're at their worst, and typically individuals will begin to make improvements with or without interventions to at least a middle ground regarding symptoms. So it's very well possible that Jane came at her worst, especially considering that she did not have very good hopes for treatment in the first place due to previous treatment attempts. So the data analysis. So the anxiety scores include, according to Beck, anywhere from a 0 to 21 means low anxiety, 22 to 35 is moderate, and 36 and up is concerning levels of anxiety. What I did is I took my final scores, placed them in a table, which you're about to see, and then converted them into a graph. So this is my table that I created in Excel. Shows the date of the session as well as her total Beck anxiety score. If you notice, each one of my scores look like Jane is at a low anxiety. However, I would argue that Jane's symptoms are enough to be impeding her ability to function at school, as evidenced by kind of her deteriorating grades. So this is my line graph. Note there's no information collected on the 2/19/18 slot. The client canceled due to weather conditions. I did choose this graph as I felt it was easy to read. It provides the scores, the spacer, so you can see a 17, an 18, 18, 17, 3, 4, and 14. And the 14 was the session after the school shooting in Florida. This had been a major trigger for my client in regards to kind of her anxiety symptoms. And we see towards the beginning, symptoms remain steady. My client by the 5th session reported implementing mindfulness in daily routine prior to school and sometimes before bed. So she really felt that the mindfulness really kind of helped her be relaxed and less stressed. So conclusions, the percentage of non-overlapping data effect size was at 42.9%. So that showed that this was not effective. The percentage of data exceeding the median was 0.714, which showed that it was moderately effective. So I would next time try to collect more data. Weather was a major barrier, as well as my availability for reschedules at the Lewis Center location, because my time is split between locations. So if I was able to collect more data, I'm curious to see if it would impact my results. It would also be interesting, if possible, instead of mixing interventions within sessions, to see if one intervention at a time impacted Jane's scores for her anxiety symptoms. It would have also been more ideal to have baseline data. However, overall, I'm very pleased with this client, as she has positive statements regarding treatment this time. Previously, she did not feel treatment was beneficial, and she verbalized really enjoying mindfulness activities like yoga and progressive muscle relaxation. She also began her own research into forms of meditation techniques, including using ancient sounds such as Tibetan bowls. She likes to listen to this before bed to help her relax. The client began to find her own strategies to manage anxiety, and I think overall this is what we want. We want our clients to be self-sufficient and no longer needing treatment. And then these are my references. Thank you very much.